It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Well, welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That, of course, Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we doing?
Busy. Very busy.
Yeah, busy. I hope you're doing well, though. Better than a lot of people that currently are in the NFL are going to be doing over the next couple of days. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., teams have to have their rosters to 53, which means a lot of guys are going to lose their jobs. Some of them won't ever step onto an NFL field again. Unfortunately, a lot of them will find greener pastures. Alan, I think we should start with one that I did not see coming. You did not see coming. We talked about it on here. Cameron Johnston not going to be the Steelers punter in 2025. Corliss Waitman clearly winning that job saves them $1.5 million on the cap. I don't know about you. I don't necessarily think that would be the reason to make that move. What's your take? What's your thought here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the cap. It saves them $1.5 million this year, costs them $1 million next year. Basically, comes out in the wash. Okay. I'm surprised. I said a lot that I thought this job was Cameron Johnston to lose. I don't think he lost it. You look at the stats without context from the preseason, and yeah, Waitman's numbers were a lot better, but it's not a lot of punts. One of his, some rookie didn't catch it. It bounced another 20 yards. Johnston also had most of the short field punting. So, I don't really think those are an equal comparison. I'm very surprised by this move. Not that I don't think Corliss Waitman is good enough to do the job. I think he's very deserving of an NFL roster spot as a punter. Said that all along. Just a little surprised it's with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I share that, and I don't know. I don't think it was just me buying into what you were saying as well. I just genuinely thought, even if if Cameron Johnston was healthy and he looked even close to the form that he was in, I thought this was going to be his job, and I thought that he did. And honestly, as somebody that was only really seeing the preseason and one training camp practice, you were there every day for training camp practice and seeing it play out. So while the fan base might only be going off those raw numbers that they see in the preseason, you were watching this competition, which we weren't sure if it really truly was one, play out every single day, and still came away thinking it was going to be Cameron Johnston's job. So yeah, I'm definitely a bit surprised about that one. Got more clarity on the off-ball linebacker situation as well, which I would say is probably the next notable one here. Mark Robinson being released. Good news for Carson Bruner, I would say, on that front, with that being the case. So, not waiting until 4 p.m. to drop them, as we know the Steelers kind of have these trickle out. But Mark Robinson released. Again, I think that's good news for Carson Bruner. Is that kind of just the only way that you looked at it here as well?
I mean, I don't think it definitely means that Carson Bruner made the team, but right. I think, and the one reason for that is you talked to at practice on Monday, Nick Herbig, who is not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1 yet. And so I think that to me means could see DeMarvin Leal make the team and none of those two linebackers make it. But it clearly creates a pecking order. I mean, it clearly says that Carson Bruner is the one that they would prefer of those two. And we'll see where things go. Mark Robinson, of course, we'll go through waivers on Wednesday. We'll see if a team picks him up. I think that's someone the Steelers would like to keep around, but that's another one to me where not the way I predicted. I thought that there would be Robinson on the team and Bruner going through waivers.
Just because of probably the easier to sneak that 7th round rookie through waivers onto the practice squad, I would assume there. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was super close. I thought they both played pretty well in the preseason. The little bit that I saw, I thought both looked good in training camp. So yeah, that was a really close. I didn't know which direction that they were going to go there, to be honest with you. I think the biggest thing is, do they feel like they can get the impact on special teams from Carson Bruner that they have been from Mark Robinson? I mean, if the ball bounces a couple different directions, Mark Robinson, he could have had 3 forced fumbles at the end of the year turn into turnovers, but they didn't recover any of them. So I don't know. I'm a bit, I don't want to say, I'm a bit surprised, not entirely, about Mark Robinson being cut here. Ben Sauls was another one I wanted to bring up just because it was very briefly before the release came out. It was put out there that maybe they were going to try to trade him, but he would be released if they could, which we always knew was going to be the case. Obviously, his NFL future wasn't going to be here in Pittsburgh. But in your mind, was there a thought like maybe there could be a trade on the table? You look at Miami, Jason Sanders going to miss some time. Carolina, obviously, who we had just played, had their own kicking competition going on, and nobody really stood out within that. So didn't know what your thought was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll try. These are very hard to create. There's no leverage. Everyone knows the Steelers aren't going to carry 2 kickers. So just wait a week, and he'll be available. I guess the one thing is if you think he's so good that he's going to be claimed on waivers, and he's, gonna somebody who's down the waiver wire wants to move up to get him, but gosh, I don't know. That just feels unrealistic for an undrafted rookie with 4 preseason kicks or 5. Yeah, it's just not. I don't really see that as being super realistic, but I think they will see if they can before they have to make the decision.
Yeah. I don't foresee something happening there either. I mean, even if it was I know I keep bringing up the comparison, but Braden Mann last year, like a late round pick swap or something like that. Any value that you can get out of somebody that wasn't going to make the team, obviously you would take it. Just kind of going through the rest of them here and maybe talk about ones that stand out to you if there were any. Lou Nichols, who we had talked about a lot on here, Max Hurleman, Lance McCutcheon, JJ Galbraith, Stephen Jones, and Aiden Williams. Mentioned Mark Robinson, Julius Welshoff, Kyler Baugh, Deshaun Jameson, Daryl Porter, and then, of course, the specialist, Ben Sauls and Cameron Johnston. So out of that group, out of the ones that we didn't mention, any of them, I mean, I don't think any of them are necessarily surprises, but do any of them stick out to you like a sore thumb, or any of them certainly they want this guy back, or majority of them that way? Just your thoughts on this group in general.
No, I mean, I think these are the ones that everybody kind of knew, right? I don't other than the specialists, actually, really, other than Cam Johnston and Mark Robinson, every other guy here, I was almost certain. Aiden Williams returned to practice today. He'd been out with a knee injury, so I guess the question there was it going to be cut or injured reserve? But everything else here seems like it was kind of predetermined.
Obviously talked a lot about Nichols, Hurleman, and Galbraith specifically when it comes to guys that we feel like are earmarked for the practice squad. You still feel that way? And who else within this group do you feel that strongly about? Yeah,
Nichols, Hurleman, Galbraith, Stephen Jones. I feel good about his guard tackle versatility. Julius Welshoff is their IPP player. I think that's a lock. I thought Daryl Porter was really good, mid preseason addition. Thought he looked good. Kyler Baugh, I think. Maybe, but the fact that Dominic Davis still on the roster and he's not tells me maybe they feel a little differently about Dominic Davis than I do. So we'll see. But I thought Kyler Baugh looked like he had some juice. I don't think being released today as opposed to tomorrow means anything about your chances of ending up on the practice squad. In fact, timing-wise with the league, all of the guys that are cut Saturday, Sunday, today, tomorrow will all go through waivers Wednesday at noon. So there's no functional difference other than just the timing of the announcements.
We do have a bit of breaking news here to bring up, but I'll go to that in a second. The first thing I wanted to ask you, I mentioned kind of at the top here that the Steelers kind of do this like a trickle effect, and there's other teams throughout the NFL that do it that way, but just curious why that is the case, and you don't see just one big news dump on Tuesday who the cuts are.
Well, they don't practice on Tuesday, so I think they wanted to, as many guys as they could, they wanted to get the cuts today, as long as it didn't disadvantage the team. Guys that you knew they weren't going to keep, they just wanted to get it out of the way because they were in the building today. There's no reason to call them in to cut them tomorrow. They will wait on players where it's one more day about the health of Nick Herbig, one more day about the health of Corey Trice, Beanie Bishop, Dante Kent, to see if they can make the roster. And then one more day, Will Howard. And then you see Derek Harmon, and you see, okay, do you need Logan Lee? Do you need DeMarvin Leal? Do you need James Pierre? Do you need Skylar Thompson? And then give some of those guys, some of those same guys, and some other guys who may not make the team that you think may have some trade value. Talked this morning on the Morning Rush a lot about the trade value of some players. I think Leal, Thompson, talked about Ben Sauls, could have some trade value if they're not going to make the team. And so you want to explore those possibilities until the last moment and see where those talks lead. And then if nothing happens by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, then you just make the cut. But you work it in as best you can and go from there.
Okay, yeah, that's good information. I was curious. It's just like kind of the way that they do business there. The breaking news that I mentioned, Trey Hendrickson back in the fold for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think it's interesting the way that this deal is done too. Just a 1-year contract for $30 million. So gives him a $14 million raise this year and allows him to hit free agency after the season. So no long-term agreement. I don't know. I mean, we knew that they were haggling over the guaranteed money, obviously. And does this surprise you that it's not? I'm not surprised about them being able to get something done for this year, but no commitment beyond it. But interesting to me. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I was 100% sure that Trey Hendrickson was going to play for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. They did this exact same thing with, was it T. Higgins last year? Or was it Jamar Chase? One of the receivers last year, they got to the exact same point and did the same thing, where it was like a just punt everything down the road a year, give them a raise and move on.
Well, T would make sense, right? Because he was prior and then had to play. Like they both got new contracts at the same time.
Yeah.
But T came into the league before, obviously. So I'm guessing it probably would have been him. They had to.
Yeah. So like it seems like it's been a thing that they are willing to do, and we'll see how it goes.
I don't. I mean, if you were okay, let's say that you're covering the Cincinnati Bengals, Alan, for a second here. How are you writing a piece about this? What is your take from the Cincinnati side of things, if that's the case?
Seems like good business. They probably should not be committing to Trey Hendrickson long term with what they've already given to Burrow and Higgins and Chase. It's not sustainable. They also want to try to win a Super Bowl. This keeps them around, gives them a year to get Shamar Stewart on his feet and see if he's a replacement. And then feel like, what's going on from there.
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly see the logic when you say that. It's just, I don't know. Like I looked at the rest of that defense and like how different can they be in 1 year? But we'll see. We'll see how much of a difference Howard Golden makes for them as well. Obviously, things were not going well with Lou Anarumo, who's now in Indianapolis, over the last couple of seasons. But I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Alan, was there anything else from today, like cuts wise, that you felt worth bringing up? Any other piece of business, piece of news, anything to come out of today?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe you can preface before we get into this conversation that you were able to have that's going to take up the back portion of the show. You had the opportunity to sit down and have an interview on Steelers Afternoon Drive. Very thankful for them for giving our time. But maybe you can introduce who the guest was, maybe give them a little bit of background on why you wanted to bring him on here.
Yeah, so been wanting to talk to Drew Fabianich, who is the new director of the Senior Bowl, had previously been the general manager at West Virginia football, someone I'm sure a good portion of our audience is familiar with. And the Senior Bowl released its top 300 list for the 2026 NFL draft last week. Thought this was a good time before the college football season to talk to Drew about where we stand with the quarterback market, what this class looks like. He's got 23 players on that top 300 list, not including Arch Manning, who didn't make it. So I think that's something that's really interesting. Talked to Drew about good stuff. We had to record it previously, so glad that we could get that done and just be me and Drew for the rest of the conversation here. But it's good stuff talking about this quarterback class. And man, when we had Andy Weidel, we talked last week, it was pretty clear the Steelers are fired up about this draft class, and they think they're getting themselves a franchise quarterback. So, I mean, Steelers now, we're going to cover college football almost as much as we're going to cover the Steelers this year. I feel like it is going to be a big deal for us throughout. So getting that started off on a hot note with the director of the Senior Bowl. How can you do better than that? Drew Fabianich. And I know you are a Senior Bowl enjoyer, as I am. Love Mobile, love that game. So great to start a new relationship with the new director of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so we're going to throw it over there. But, of course, just I don't know, Alan, did you remember to tell the people to like, subscribe, and do all those things at the end here?
I did not. No.
All right. Well. Okay. So this is kind of weird to throw it in the middle, but like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all those good things, leave us a 5-star review, and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else. But for the rest of the episode, I'm going to throw it over to Alan and Drew and let them take it away.
Afternoon Drive, Drew Fabianich from the Senior Bowl. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us for a little bit this afternoon. Really appreciate it. New to the Senior Bowl this year, taking over as the director of one of my favorite events on the draft calendar. I love going down to Mobile. The first time I went there, I knew nothing about Mobile, Alabama. Kind of fell in love with the city a little bit in my time there, and I think it's it's the only part of the whole evaluation process that you get to see these guys on the field in pads actually doing the job, and I loved every trip there. So excited for that. But the Senior Bowl has put out its top 300 list ahead of the 2025 college football season. So I wanted to get you on to talk about that list, talk about I think specifically some of the quarterbacks on that list. But first of all, how's the transition to the new role going, and how are you taking to Mobile so far?
Well, I mean, as you said, you kind of fall in love with Mobile the more you're here. Even in my 18 years of coming down here, working with the Cowboys, I really never got to see much of this town because it was, you find your spot for breakfast, you find your spot for lunch, in the middle of practice, you got interviews every single night. So, rarely did you get a chance to even experience this place. And we have now, and we love it. And, we bought an 1867 Colonial that we've been working on for the last 2 months, and old house have old problems, but you can tell the flavor of this town by the homes that are down here. And it's got like a little bit of a, I'd say a New Orleans feel, but a little bit different, if that makes sense. And
yeah, absolutely.
The transition's been good. Again, I didn't know all the ins and outs of exactly what I was going to have to handle. And I found out that it's more civically driven than I thought it was going to be. I was like, hey, I pick out 145 players. I can handle that pretty easily. It's the other pieces that have been thrown into this, including media, which I can tell you I'm not comfortable with, and I know I'm going to have to get comfortable with it because it's part of the job and it's part of the promotion. And this city, loves this game and has embraced it for years and years. And it's a premier all-star game for a reason. It's because it sells out. The town's behind it. And it's special to this place.
It certainly is. You're doing great so far in the media world. We'll give you all A's at this point, and I really do appreciate you joining us here. Of course, Pittsburgh very excited about the draft in general, with the draft coming to Pittsburgh, not for the first time, but for the first time in almost recent memory. They had it at a hotel here back in, I want to think, the 40s or something like that. But for the first time since the draft has been a public event anyway. So we've got lots of preparations for the draft going on here in the city in terms of infrastructure and things like that. And of course, a lot of excitement from the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base as they kind of put off the big task of quarterback for another year, signing Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal. He says it's going to be his last season in the NFL. Sort of all signs point to quarterback being at the top of the list for Omar Khan in that draft class in Pittsburgh. So when I got your top 300 list the other day, I sort of set scroll the columns to quarterback and let's see what we're working with. It seems like the perception is this should be a pretty strong quarterback class, but I want to get your thoughts on what the group looks like heading into the season.
Well, and again, the 300 was brought out, by me because, I wanted this to seem like it was more of an honor to be on it. And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from schools about that, and put it this way, that this is an honor, but, getting the invite's a bigger honor. I wanted to not based on position, and you can play your way into an invite with the Senior Bowl. I'm not going to say we're going to pull 145 players from just this 300 right now. You're not boxed out just because I said this is the top 300 right now. It's off of last year's tape. So, for those guys that are going like, hey, I'm not even on the list, you can still play your way into this game quite easily. Just ball out and perform. So the quarterback class has got 23 players 23 players on 300 right now. I think there's probably 5 to 6 first rounders in that group. I also think that on a total, I think there's 8 starters within that group of 23. And I don't mean they're going to start next year, and there's not that much turnover in the NFL where there's going to be, 8 spots next year for 8 brand new rookie quarterbacks. I'm saying eventually in their career, they can start in the NFL at some point. If right place, right time, and they've got that ability to be able to. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying franchise quarterbacks. I'm saying starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So that's where we had a cutoff, and there's going to be probably 2 or 3 that surface this year that have a really good year, and they'll be in consideration also.
Obviously, you're new to this role with the Senior Bowl, but you're not new to the draft or football in general. Does this feel like at this point to you a class of above average quarterback talent near the top?
Yeah, I'd say it's better than last year's, to be quite blunt with you on that one. I think what helped this class is a lot of young men decided to stick around and develop more and, try to take their team to the playoffs, which I respect a great deal, because then it's not about me, it's about the team. So I think that's why this class is stronger than the year before. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of guys possibly sticking around, unless it's a weaker, quarterback class and they can leave as a junior and be a high pick.
How do you decide whether to include underclassmen in your list? Do you have a process there?
Well, we did. And here's the hard part about it. And I'll kind of tell you this was kind of the Mendoza line. If we didn't think that they were third round and above, then we didn't include them, because didn't want to piss off too many head coaches. Because if you include a 5th and 6th round guy that they may want to keep around, or a 4th round guy that they say, hey, could become a third, then they might get kind of pissed off. But here's what's strange. I got calls last week, and one head coach said, hey, you didn't include such and such. And I said, well, I said he was hurt last year. I thought it would piss you off. He goes, oh, no, it'll be fine. And he said, well, you didn't include the running back. And I said, no. And he says, I'm glad you didn't do that. I was like, okay, so I can't win for losing here. So again, I'm sure that there are some that, are irritated with it, that they're, in the 300. Will they declare? Will they come out? I don't know. But I can just tell you that we graded them, and we're going to continue to grade them, and we're going to continue to be prepared for, when the declaration comes out and whether they're going to get invites or not. They may get invites before they even declare, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so much has changed about college football. I think that's certainly one of them. Another thing that has changed, I think, significantly is the number of players that are getting to this point where they're potentially even a first-round draft pick at the quarterback position that have transferred. That's something that years and years ago was almost unheard of. It's become sort of became more common, but now a bunch of these guys that are on your list here, I just off the top of my head, I see Nico at UCLA, I see Beck, I see Mendoza that are all at different Power 5 places. Gronowski moving to Iowa. How does changing a system, changing a team impact your evaluation of a player? It certainly doesn't have that sort of stigma that a transfer used to have, but how does it sort of go into the evaluation process when you're looking at a guy in a new offense?
Well, how do they assimilate to that new offense? That's the first thing I'm going to look at. How much more productive were they in this system than they were in the last system? And it still goes down to what they do on tape and how productive they are. And again, you also have to ask about leadership ability, because did they walk in the door and did the team embrace them, and did they become a leader? Does that help? Yes, it does. I mean, because we're going to ask those questions just like scouts would, that are on the road. So again, I agree with you. It's not something that has that stigma like, okay, well, why'd he transfer? Well, most of the time before it was, well, he's sitting behind a guy that's going to be there for 3 years, and, and he possibly wants to, play earlier. Well, I mean, that's what the excuse used to be. Now it's, well, sometimes it's about the money.
Yeah, you've got an interesting opportunity here as in terms of the Senior Bowl? Is this a combination of all the history you talked about, the place, the people love it, but also it seems to fit into this modern landscape where, you have the expanded college football playoff, and you have NIL, and you have guys going back, and it just seems like no matter what, the Senior Bowl has found a way to remain relevant and remain a big part of the draft conversation. What do you see as the sort of big picture? Maybe not problems is the wrong word, but potential hurdles for the Senior Bowl as we navigate all these changes in college football.
I think it's the same every year. It's, trying to get the best players you possibly can, fighting some of the arguments the agents might have, about why are they playing in the game. And like you stated before, you're playing in a game and you're playing against the best versus the best. Well, that's the argument. The other argument for the, below the P4 division is, can you compete at this level? And, this is a perfect way to find out if you can compete at this level, because you can't tell me that the combine is going to tell me whether you can or can't, because, again, you're not playing the game. And I'm stealing from John Gruden because he used this in his Hall of Fame speech. He said, this is where players come to play. And bottom line, I mean, everybody that you talk to that's played in this game feels that it's of value to them and it has increased their value. Now, there's some that maybe didn't play as well. And guess what? That shows the NFL what you are too. And trust me, they're not watching just the one-on-ones. They're watching the inside drill. They're watching Skelly. They're watching the game. They're watching the sidelines, how you approach this. I mean, there's every aspect of every player is put out during this week. And I think it's a benefit for them to actually be here and to play in this game. I believe that. And everybody else in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, look at a guy like Tyler Shook. When we went to the Senior Bowl last year, I think people were talking about him like he might be a 7th-round pick, might end up starting for the Saints as a rookie. The Senior Bowl was certainly the start of that. So I don't want to make too much of the list or who's on it or who's not at this stage of the calendar, because even all the way until the end of the Senior Bowl, it can certainly change. But I did want to ask you specifically about one guy that I know our local fan base has a lot of interest in, and that's Drew Aller from down the road at Penn State. He's one of those guys that I think had an opportunity to come out in the draft this past year. I think he would have been very highly drafted if he had, but decided to go back. Penn State looks like a potential favorite to win a national title. What do you make of his talent and where sort of things stand for him in the draft process here as he enters the season?
Well, I was lucky enough to break him down for 2 years, but also unlucky enough to play against him for 2 years in West Virginia when I was general manager there. Drew has all the prototype, measurables that you look for in a quarterback. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he can protect himself in the pocket. He's agile enough to escape. Is he a, real run threat? No, but I always said he's athletic enough to save his own tail, and that's a good thing. Reads through progressions well, got a strong arm. And again, if you're just looking at quarterbacks, you're automatically going to start with the measurables, just because, bigger offensive linemen, bigger people, as going back to Parcells, saying, small guys wear down, big guys don't get any smaller. Well, holds true for the quarterback too, because they still take hits. So, I mean, I like Drew, and, I like his traits. I like his game. And again, we're not going to get into whether we're inviting or not right now, but, he's got a chance to be a first or second day guy for sure.
I'll put you on the spot here. First full weekend of college football coming up this Saturday. What's the game you got circled? Where are you making sure that you're in front of your television, or are you going to a game?
Well, I'm not going to go to a game, and I'll tell you real quickly why I'm not, and I'm really not going to go to many games, because when you go to a game, and I've been to hundreds and hundreds of games in my career, when you spend almost 16 hours, during a day, by travel, by parking, by being there early, everything else, I can sit there in a multi-view on YouTube TV, 4 at a time, and I can watch 16 games in one day and take notes on flashes and guys that, interest me and all that. That's more valuable to me than going to And again, the one I'd love to be at is Ohio State and, Texas. Well, prospect after prospect after prospect. I'm gonna give you one little tube little tube of advice that I got from Jerry Reese, because he and I coached together. My first, visit to a game, I go, how am I supposed to watch all these pro guys? Because we were doing a pro game. And he goes, well, you scout everybody, you scout nobody. And it made a hell of a lot of, made a point really valid to me, because again, I can't hit rewind during a game. Well, I can take notes on the flashes and, positive and negatives, but, is it really put it this way, is my time well spent doing that? No. So you won't see me in a lot of games. Now, we'll have some scouts that are going to be at some games that are valuable for them to see, but I've got more. I can get more done on a Saturday doing it the other way.
There you go. Watching the games in multi-view sounds like the way to go. Drew, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a lot on your plate getting ready for a college football season and heading into Senior Bowl and the draft season. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll maybe catch up with you again before we get to Mobile.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Drew.
All right. Alan didn't know I was going to be doing this, but I am back. Let me just take this off the screen, because some breaking news here that came in after we had threw it to Alan and Drew. Amari Cooper going back to the Raiders, where he started his career, a former first-round pick, signing a one-year contract there. Now, Alan is not here to shut down my delusion, so I should throw it out there. Is this opening the window for a Jacoby Myers trade to Pittsburgh? Alan can't shut it down on me for at least 24 hours, so I'm throwing it out there to you guys. But that's it. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. As always, I'll give you guys a number update. 16,500 and Sean Davis, 28. That's the number we are at right now. Let me know your favorite number 28. And Steelers. Oh, I could use like Cortez Allen as well. That would have been a good one. And also leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else. Stay tuned for another one of these tomorrow. Find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. Until then, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.